so this is Blueyah Blueberry Farm near Oxford, Iowa, sort of between Tiffin and Oxford, right off I-80. I'm Jenna Hamrick. This is my husband.
Eric Johnson.
And we started this place, well, we moved here in 2011 and planted in 2012. And now the bushes are approximately
10 years old.
Yeah. So what got us into this is probably way back when I was in grad school here. I visited a blueberry farm that I don't think is operational anymore, but it was near Hills, Iowa on Sand Road. And they had maybe 1,000 or more high bush blueberry plants. And you were just out there wandering in this like 6 feet tall maze of plants and eating this delicious fruit. And I'd never done that before, never tasted a fresh blueberry. And I thought, this is what we want.
Yeah.
They're not like anything you can buy at the store. Like the store, we call them, what, tasteless blue marbles?
Sometimes you'll get lucky at the store, but it's usually a 50-50 shot of getting anything good.
It should be noted that we maintained our jobs the whole time.
Yeah.
So we didn't risk everything to do this. And we never really thought that it would turn into a full-time thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at the very beginning, we actually tried to do a new farmer grant thing through Farm Bureau, only to find at the end of the process that we were not eligible. So yeah, if we'd gotten a grant, we might have thrown caution to the wind and done full time, but I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah, we kind of like the balance of having other jobs and this for both. Because I mean, you know, with the weather, like this year there was inexplicable damage to the blueberries and we think our yield's gonna be less, so then it's like, I mean, then we're like all the like large scale farmers whose livelihoods are wedded to the weather, and that's, I mean, I grew up with that and that's stressful. So we like having the buffer.
Yeah. So we didn't say you grew up on a conventional farm.
Yep, I grew up on a farm down by Fairfield. I think it was about 2,000 acres of acreage, corn and soybeans, cattle and pigs kind of stuff. So I had that farm experience growing up, and I wasn't intimidated by living in the country or doing farm stuff.
Yeah, I grew up in the country too, not on a farm though, in the Illinois River Valley. And we were surrounded by farms, you know, on top of the valley, but down there it was forest. So when this property came up for sale, Eric found it, and I said, "Oh no, this is too much." I was intimidated by this, but it has everything. It has this beautiful forest preserve. It has an oak savanna that has been degraded, but we're working on restoring, and it has this beautiful farmstead that we're gradually like fixing up and maintaining.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you said, but what year did you start growing blueberries, I guess?
They went in the ground in 2012, but we didn't open until 2016 because we had some stops and starts with, like, 2012 was a drought, so we irrigated heavily, but didn't realize that our drought water our well water was not good for them. It has a lot of iron content, so they got a lot of stuff they didn't like. So we had to replant a lot and then wait for them to grow. So then it's been slowly growing since then.
So I suppose short-term goals would be to keep the blueberries alive. I mean, it's no small task with climate change. We see the effects all the time. And on our trees too.
Yeah, we've had several big oaks die.
Yeah.
I mean, they're old, but they're also kind of dying at the same time, which is troubling.
So we've lost a lot of blueberry plants, and so far we've replanted them, the ones that have died, but we have no plans to expand. And it's not because there's no demand, because there are 900 people who subscribed to our email list, and we can only accommodate maybe 50 groups per season. So it is a mad dash. Every time we open up appointments to pick, and people get upset because they didn't make it out this season or last season. There's really nothing we can do. But we don't want to expand because it doesn't seem like, we want to respect the oak savanna. That's my view.
That's part of it, yeah.
This is it's a remnant. It's a really important part of Iowa's ecological heritage, and they've mostly been plowed under because of conventional crops. And even though we're doing organic practices here, I don't want to encroach any further on that part of the land.
So, what varieties of blueberries do you have?
3 different kinds. We chose them. Well, we went to the supplier, the nursery where we get them from. We went and visited them, and the owner took us around for a tour, and we got to taste a lot of the different varieties, and that was great. And so we picked the varieties based on the taste, and then to get them to span the season. So the first variety starts the end of June, and then the next one starts a couple weeks later, and then the next one starts a couple weeks later, to give more time for pickers to come out. So we can have more people out, but not have like a mad rush all at once. So yeah, the 3 varieties are Blue Crop, Spartan, and Nelson.
But there are, over 50 varieties of highbush blueberry?
24 is
24.
Our nursery sells 24, so there's probably
more.
10, 20 more than that, I would say, at least.
So, of your varieties, what are they best for?
We were kind of blueberry purists. We would say plain because that's what tastes best. We've tried to make things with them, but it just doesn't taste as good to us as fresh fruit.
And in Michigan, specifically the nursery where we bought our plants, they plant many different kinds. Some are for the you-pick experience and just eating fresh, or maybe on ice cream or with cream. But a lot of the rows that they plant are to be machine harvested, where it's a big harvester that shakes the berry, or shakes the bush and the berries fall off. And so those varieties have to have a thicker skin, and they don't taste as good straight off the bush. So I think they're shippable, and so I think a lot of the time if you don't buy you-pick berries, you're getting that. If you're not picking them yourself, I mean.
Yeah, I guess that's something to consider if you're starting your own operation. Is like, do you want to ship them? Like, if so, then you need to pick varieties that are good for shipping, or you pick.
Yeah.
You don't need that.
People say that they have baked with these and that they're delicious, and we've put them in salads occasionally. They're great, but yeah. Blueberry life cycle.
Blueberry life cycle. So it starts, I guess you'd say, like right after the fruit is done is when the next season starts. So they start forming the fruit buds right then, and those set before fall, and then the fruit buds require a certain number of cooling hours. Like, we meet the minimum requirements for cooling hours in Iowa, no problem. It's like 1,000 hours under 40 degrees or 50 degrees or something like that. It's not a concern for us, but it's an interesting thing.
You can't grow them in pots in your house.
Yeah. So then in this spring, they start to awaken and start to leaf out, and then the buds that were formed in the prior summer, fall, start to get bigger and then kind of look like a spiky pine cone kind of thing, and then start to turn pink and then white and open into a bell-shaped flower. And then that's when the bumblebees go to work and pollinate them.
Mm-hmm. And everywhere that there was a flower, there will be a berry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fruit, it starts off green. So you'll have green berries like this year in May. And then usually in June sometime, they start really bluing up. And then, well, I suppose like pinkish is in between. We've got greenish, pink, purplish.
That one will still taste kind of like a ripe blueberry.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's ready.
No, not at all.
And then if you go a long time without picking, they'll turn even black, but that's fine.
And they have a protective, I forget what the name of it is.
It's called a bloom.
A bloom.
It's like a cloudy white coating to protect them.
So you're actually not supposed to wash them after you pick them until like you're ready to eat them. You don't need to wash them ever because we don't spray them or anything, but some people want to in case there's bugs or whatever.
Yeah.
But it protects them, kind of like eggs have a protective, I don't know if they call it a bloom too.
I don't know. So these are high bush blueberries. There's also low bush, and those are mostly grown, or they grow wild around New England. And so a lot of people who come here grew up in New England and have memories of picking there, just going into the woods. and they're low, so you get down on your knees and you pick your berries. Here, it's great that you can stand up and just pick into your bucket. And these bushes are not even full grown. They will be over 6 feet tall, all the varieties. And the pounds per bush, I forget.
They say you can get 8, and if you really are doing great, you can get 16. Some growers in Oregon say they can get 16, which is a crazy amount more than we're getting currently.
Yeah, we don't have a fertilizer program. We just put, we amend the soil.
Yep, lower the pH. They require a lot of sulfur to keep the pH between 4 and 5, which is really low compared to most plants.
Yeah, so Iowa tends to have really great soil, as you probably all know. And so that's why so much grows here. Even weeds get to be 10 feet tall. But blueberries are not quite native because the soil is too alkaline. So we basically replaced the soil in these beds with tons of peat moss. And then Eric usually goes around in the fall and puts down elemental sulfur pellets, which break down over the course of the year. At the beginning, we were irrigating with acidic or acidified water, but we don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, it was hard to manage that. Sulfur is just easier to just cast it on and it takes care of itself. It's slower, but much easier to handle.
Yeah, but there is drip irrigation along all of these rows because that is a difficult part about raising blueberries. They don't want wet feet or wet roots, but they do need constant moisture.
Blueberries are great because, at least in Iowa, because there's not much of that.
There's no native pests or disease.
Yeah, there's Japanese beetles are our biggest problem.
Which everyone has on all of their vegetables and fruit.
But this year they're not really bothering out here, not that I've seen yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Sometimes they're bad, and we put up Japanese beetle traps around the perimeter to draw them out.
But all they'll do is just eat the fruit during their mating season, and then they die. So they don't damage the bushes. So again, there's no real native pests or disease, and we don't have to spray. Probably what we do most is weed. And I mean, there's just so much grass that grows up, you know, in between. You'll see here. Of course, there's Creeping Charlie. Over here, we've got the mulberry that makes its appearance everywhere.
It's impossible to pull.
And we pull all the weeds by hand. We mow. Eric weed eats a lot, but when it's growing up between the stalks like that, we just go around, crawling around, gloves.
Yeah, it's kind of, sometimes like if it's nice weather and you've got some knee pads or something and a podcast or some music to listen to, then it's kind of like a nice activity, but it does feel kind of like pushing a stone uphill also. Yeah.
Luckily, these are big enough that they're sort of out competing some of the grass.
Yeah, once they get big enough, they provide the shade, and I think their root systems and their own microorganisms kind of hold things down a little bit. My favorite part is, well, A, is tasting the blueberries every summer, like, because that's an awesome experience. So that's selfish, but then also like when other people come out and have this experience for the first time, or if they love it, I really like helping them have a nice rural experience, because in my ideal world, I would love everyone who wanted to live rural to be able to live rural, therapeutic and relaxing, and fits a lot of people's just personalities or values. And so I'm sad that more people can't live out here. So I like to provide this experience for that purpose too.
And I think I really like to design environments and atmospheres for people. And I like the idea of providing a multi-sensory experience where not only do you get to come out and have like this beautiful silence most of the time, and you can hear the birds and just everything in nature, but you can also taste what fresh fruit tastes like, and feel all the things too. I dream of like having a wandering violinist one day, or just incorporating music somehow occasionally. Yeah, or nighttime picking with like headlamps. That's my thing. So if you're curious, you can go to our website, which is blueyahblueberryfarm.com. It'll probably show up in the description below this video. But there is a link to a small website where you can buy tickets for a small group or just one person. And if they're all sold out, then you can sign up to be notified the next time we open up appointments.